freaking first cut. Golly.
Hello, YouTube. Here's a sentence I don't say very often, an entire live episode just for you. There's format updates. There's headlines regarding the relationship with the PGA Tour. There's a million things to go through, and we're going to do it right now. Hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, joined today by first Patrick McDonald. Patrick, good to see you.
Good to see you guys as well. I don't think us three have been together for a think tank episode per se. So looking forward to it.
Kyle Porter is here. Both of you on the road. Much appreciate you checking in for the latest of LIV Golf. Hello, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm in Colorado, getting a little family time in, but also getting some work in. It's I left Dallas. It was like 96 degrees, and we got here and it was like 45. So. Oof. Very good change of pace.
Good thing you've got that Open Championship beanie on. Kyle, I'm not going to ask too much of you today. I'm going to ask you to put on your, to be an antitrust attorney. I'm going to ask you to be a defamation attorney. I'm going to ask you to be a network executive. I'm going to ask you to be the commissioner of a golf league. And if you want to throw in your political takes along the way, I'd be more than happy to accept them.
Well, I tweeted out the Fox Sports story that Eamon Lynch wrote the other day, and DJ Pyhowski responded and said, "You would make this political," which I thought was perfect. So we got up here with the kids, and we've been doing crossword puzzles that are like mildly difficult for me, but impossible for them because they don't know all the words, right? They don't understand the definitions. They don't understand any of the stuff, but they've still jumped into it and they know a couple words here or there. It's exactly how I feel about all these, or that's exactly how I feel about all these lawsuits. It's like, I can pick up a couple words. I don't really know what's going on. And it's, some of it's fun because it's dramatic, right? But some of it, and you guys probably feel this way too, it's frustrating because it's like, I don't even know what this means, you know? And then you have to like do some research and you maybe get it right. And I don't know, it's been a weird year, and we've got 2 new lawsuits since we last talked, which is just outrageous.
This is a lawsuit podcast now, Patrick. That's where we're at. Golf has just expanded from these 45 events that we get every year from Thursday to Sunday to everything else on the slate that we're going to discuss right now.
Exactly. And then we have, a letter to the OWGR chairman, like that's happened recently. It's just a whole, it's a cluster of just madness where, the lawsuits really, if I put on my lawyer hat, any merit at all? Probably not. So it's tough to understand. It's also tough to understand when kind of the backing of it doesn't really make sense in the first place.
Well, I real quick, can I jump in, Rick? I've got a question for you guys because, and maybe this is more for Patrick because Rick and I have talked about this, but I saw Rory said, "Hey, everybody needs to sit down at the table and come together and whatever." I don't know what that means, right? I don't know, I don't know how all this plays out over the next 18 months, Patrick. And I just don't, I'm curious if you, when you hear, because Rory's not the only player or person to say that. It's been, sort of proposed by other people, whether players or fans or whatever. It's like, hey, we need to make this all work. And it's like, well, what is that? And this is tied to all the lawsuit stuff because not making it work looks like suing each other, right? And so what does making it work or coming together even look like as you sort of think about everything that's going on?
It's a fantastic question, and I think for Rory, he's at the offset of it, right? At the Genesis Invitational, he's like, this thing will blow over, be gone in a few months. And slowly but surely, JP McManus came. He kind of said something similar to what he said this week at the Alfred Dunhill. And then last week, Patrick Cantlay said something like, in 10 years, we're all kind of just going to laugh at this. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's more of a, I think it's kind of funny how all of them mentioned Dustin Johnson. They're like, we really miss DJ out here just because he's kind of done it right in regards to LIV, where He's not in the spotlight pushing all this stuff forward. He's playing golf. He's fishing. He's got his money. He's having fun. He's playing pretty good golf, by the way. And I don't know if it's going to be something like the Scottish Open almost between LIV and the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour, where it's like co-sanctioned events. That's not going to happen in probably Jay Monahan's lifetime, kind of his stance on the whole matter. And I don't know if the major championships are kind of here to stay for the LIV players, but they are having an increasingly difficult time to qualify for those outside of the DP World Tour events. So I don't know if it's their way of saying, I know Rory said they do deserve OWGR points, but they can't change the rules at the same time type of deal. I don't know if I don't know. Like, to be honest with you, I don't know. It's a weird to have these two forces butting heads and saying, oh, we'll get along eventually. And kind of, I think we need to have the dust settle but I don't know if the dust will ever settle type of deal,
Yeah.
And it's just going to be contentious forever, despite people saying like, oh, in time, cooler heads will prevail. There might never be cooler heads. So I think it's extremely difficult to answer your question. And I absolutely just did not at all.
Perfect. That's what we do around here generally. All right, let's jump into this. So let's go back a couple of months. Remember that LIV Golf and like 11 players sued the PGA Tour. That's when we got the live look in to the courtroom of Beth Labson Freeman. Remember her as a character in this? That's season 1 of all of this. Well, the PGA Tour has filed a countersuit claiming that LIV Golf has induced golfers to breach existing contracts, quote, Kyle, for astronomical sums of money to induce them to breach their contracts with the tour in an effort to use LIV players and the game of golf to sports wash the recent history of Saudi atrocities and to further the Saudi Public Investment Fund's Vision 2030 initiatives, end quote. That's quite the claim.
It is. I think a lot of it is fluff. I mean, the sports washing and the 2030 thing, it's like, is that provable or enforceable? I don't know. The part that I think people should pay attention to is the breach of contract on the PGA Tour's side. And the thing that I'm struggling with, Rick, is like, these players don't have contracts with the PGA Tour, right? They enter, and maybe the word contract is being used loosely, because they enter into as members, they sort of agree to what's in the player handbook, right? And maybe
Right.
that's being used as a sort of like the player handbook is essentially the contract, like saying, okay, this is what I agree to or commit to. And so I'm curious, that was the only part that I didn't really understand, because I think that's going to be, just as a lay person who doesn't understand the law at all, it seems like that would be something that's kind of difficult to parse out in a court of law.
So I think this kind of goes back a little bit, Patrick, to the PGA Tour banning these golfers who left for LIV. Because if you remember, through some of this discovery, we have seen the text messages that Greg Norman sent to Sergio Garcia in particular, which he said, quote, "They cannot ban you for one day, let alone life. It is a shallow threat. Ask them to put that in writing to you or any player. I bet they don't. Happy for anyone to speak with our legal team to better understand. They have no chance of enforcing," end quote. That's the text from Sharky to Sergio, which I think is kind of the crux of all this, right? LIV saying, okay, you can't ban these guys from the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour saying, oh, yes, we can. They agreed to this handbook, these rules and regulations. They went outside of this. Now it is my prerogative as the commissioner to ban them.
Sharky. I didn't know you guys were close like that, Rick.
Well, that's what Sergio calls him. So I figured I'd, put you in the moment there, make you feel like you were really reading that text.
That's a great callback, Rick. That's so good. I forgot about that.
The whole contract situation, like Kyle said, it's extremely interesting to me, just because, I mean, from 1,000 million feet away. I used to be a contractor of sorts, and I kind of thought about it from like federal consulting standpoint where, okay, I was with Deloitte. I was contracted to the DEA. I'm not a narc, I swear, but I could also be contracted to the Postal Service in the Treasury as well, but under that Deloitte umbrella. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, do these LIV guys have any merit to this at all? It's like, no, because technically they'd be under that umbrella. It doesn't work that way with the various tours. So the countersuit for me, it's just more, there's just so much noise around it that truthfully, I don't understand it all. I'm not going to pretend like I have a law degree because I don't. And I'm not going to pretend that every single word in it made sense to me because it didn't. But the contract situation, like Kyle said, I think it has to be loosely interpreted just because they don't sign contracts. It's just that player handbook. And so I don't know how much like merit, right?
Well, go real quick. Go back to what were you saying about the umbrella thing? Explain that again.
So like at Deloitte, I could be contracted to various clients at the same time. Like that's fine, but it's under the Deloitte umbrella. So I'm working for, Postal Service, Drug Enforcement Administration, Treasury, IRS, all at the same time, but it's under the Deloitte umbrella. If I went away and started my own thing, I could also do that, but they're under the PGA Tour umbrella because they're members, right? But
yeah,
it's difficult because they don't sign contracts. So it is a gray area almost, but if you can interpret that handbook as a contract, then the PGA Tour is in the right.
So this is where I want to jump in with what I think a solution could look like, because it dovetails with what Patrick is saying here. And this is something I've been yelling about for a couple of months now, Rick, and there has to be a good reason that the PGA Tour has not done this. So let's take LIV out of it. Let's say you have the best player on the Asian Tour or the Sunshine Tour or wherever, and they want to play, like that's their home tour. They play on the Asian Tour, they play on the Sunshine Tour. If they want to play on the PGA Tour also, they can if they qualify for it. But if your home tour is elsewhere, you have to play 15 events on the PGA Tour. And the reason for that, as I understand it, is the media rights stuff, right? Like you can't sustain a tour like the PGA Tour if you just have people hopping in and out at a whim. So because you have to be able to go to a network and say, hey, like these are the guys that are like, these are our rules. This is what's going to happen. And if it doesn't, then they're breaking the rules, right? So there's a lot going on there with
bundling all these players into a media contract with CBS or NBC or Golf Channel or whoever. And so I think my question all along, Patrick, has been, why doesn't the PGA, like, Dustin Johnson's home tour now is LIV. Great, that's fine. I don't, whatever. Go do that. And he's done it well, like you said. Why doesn't the PGA Tour just raise its restrictions on, if your home tour is another tour, raise the restriction to, like, you got to play 17 events to be able to be a PGA Tour member. We've seen Martin Keimer lose his card. We've seen, I think, Tommy Fleetwood lose his card because they didn't play enough events and their home tour was elsewhere. Just raise the limit a little bit. Those guys, Dustin Johnson's not going to play 29 events a year, right? And so are you going to get some sponsor exemptions where DJ plays a random PGA Tour event? Sure. That seems a lot easier to deal with than all this other stuff. And I just don't understand why they don't go that route. It doesn't solve your, like, sort of in the moment problem, but I think it does solve maybe what the future looks like.
Oh, I think we've talked about this before. I'm in complete agreement with that, where a few more events for, some of the top players, I think they'd much rather go down that avenue than kind of what's happening right now in the court of law. So I'm with you 100%, where I guess they're trying to do that with this new schedule, right? These players are playing 20 events. So I guess they kind of did it almost like after the fact, but at the onset of it, why weren't they just like, all right, fine, you can play for LIV, but we're going to make your life miserable almost, where you're going to be traveling I mean, what, 52 weeks, 38 weeks out of the year or something like that.
Yeah.
Last thing on this. Does it mean anything? Is it noteworthy at all that there are only 3 plaintiffs remaining on this LIV Golf case? Bryson DeChambeau, Matt Jones, Peter Uihlein, while Phil Mickelson, Ian Poulter, Hudson Swafford, Taylor Gooch, Abe Answer, Carlos Ortiz, Pat Perez, and Jason Kokrak have all asked the judge to remove them from that antitrust case. Is that interesting, noteworthy, special, anything?
What, just like a random assortment of players almost.
Like I just drew names out of a hat, right?
Like outside of the whole LIV sphere, Peter Uihlein, Matt Jones, and Bryson, what do they have in common? Like, you think they ever talked to each other before?
No. It is
I don't know
weird,
what that means.
It's almost like I would expect either all or nothing. Like the middle is weird to me because once LIV joined, it's like, okay, well, that's sort of what we're actually talking about here is LIV against the PGA Tour. I don't know why. I don't know why Peter Uihlein is still in like a plaintiff. Like, what is? I don't know what he's necessarily gaining from that. So yes, I don't know if it means anything, but I think it's kind of strange as it stands right now. Maybe they'll eventually all drop out, but I think it's kind of odd right now.
Discovery in this case is scheduled to begin this month, and the trial is set for January of 2024. So if this goes to trial, we are a 15 months away from that. So
have you guys wondered if any of your like DMs or texts will end up in Discovery? I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that works.
That'd be so good. I think they're more likely to show up in Discovery of the next lawsuit that we'll talk about later, the Patrick Reed one, where I oh boy, I've said some things. Maybe I think I have a higher chance of showing up there than I do here.
I might be in the Reed corner. I've been a big fan of his on Twitter in the past. I'm still clean, not blocked yet.
Oof. You're in the minority there.
Tough. All right, let's talk a little golf here because LIV Golf did announce their team format. And I will remind people, it's going to be a sprint for LIV because they have 3 events remaining, I believe, and they're all in October. So you're going to get a lot of LIV Golf here in the next couple of weeks. So they announced this format, which bear with me here. I'm going to try to talk through this. It's 3 days long. Friday, the first round. Teams seeded 1 through 4 receive a bye. Teams 5 through 12 play head-to-head match play. The higher ranked teams can select their opponents. It's a shotgun start as we would normally see. I'm just trying to see what else is going on. They have a mix of 2 singles matches and 1 alternate shot match. There's kind of a lot going on here, Patrick. It's a little, and that's just Friday, by the way.
Yeah, I think the rumor on the street is they kind of had to change the whole format for the TV deal. And I mean, objectively, I think it's kind of sick just because it's different and the top teams can essentially point to like Chase Koepka and be like, oh, like we want all of you right here, right now, like easy pickings. So I like that it's almost personal in the way where the top teams get to pick on the worst teams and they can kind of bite them in the butt. But yeah, there's a ton going on with alternate shot and 2 singles matches, but it's kind of like the new girl at school where it's different, it's new. So you got a lot of fireworks and pizzazz around it, but will it ever wear off? Probably, but just because it's so different, I'm like light to the fly, shiny new object.
So for the dull people like myself who is having trouble figuring this out. So 4 players on each team. So 2 of them play as singles. The other 2 play in the alternate shot match. So that's 3 total matches. Each match receives 1 point. And then Kyle, teams that earn 2 points on Friday, they get to go to Saturday.
Yeah. So I'm with Patrick. I give, and I've tried to be fair-ish about all this. Like LIV has done some stuff that's great. That honestly the PGA Tour should look at and be like, we should be doing that with better players and a more robust infrastructure. And the tour is like it's not a tour specific problem. It's like all big organizations. It's hard to steer an ocean liner versus a speedboat, right? LIV is at the helm of a speedboat, and is all of this going to be potentially difficult to explain? Remember when Steve Sands used to have the whiteboard and he would be doing like calculus while there's like 4 players on the back 9 at Eastlake, and you're like, what are we doing here? That's a little bit what this feels like. But if you can explain it, I got to give them credit for being just a little bit creative with what they're doing. I think we've been critical of the tour in the past of like, hey, be a little creative with the tour championship. It got made up 15 years ago. It doesn't have to always look like this, and now it's a net event, which is just a whole other thing. But I give LIV credit for being creative with their format, and if it's presented in the right way, I think it could be actually really, really interesting to follow.
Saturday becomes the semifinals, where teams seeded 1 through 4, they received a bye on Friday. They now join everybody else on Saturday for the semis, and we go through another round of this. Highest ranked teams select their opponents. Same thing, 2 singles matches, 1 alternate shot match. And again, the 4 teams that earn 2 points advance to the championship. That championship will then be played on Sunday. And then this is where we flip the script again here, Patrick, because the 4 winning teams, if you get to the championship, it's back to stroke play, which all 4 scores count towards the team score. And then the lowest team score at the end of Sunday is your LIV Golf Invitational Series team champion.
Woo! Yeah.
And it's like $100 billion, I think, if you win it.
That I don't know if Pat Perez is going to get any sleep that Saturday night. He's going to have to step up big for them. His score is finally counting.
What if you shoot a 54 an alternate shot? How much money do you win?
Who knows?
That would be sick.
You don't get to they don't give you money. You just get your first pick of your residence on the line.
Oh, the line. I legitimately thought that was a movie trailer when that video came out.
I think everybody did.
I'm like we've said thus far, I do like the format. I'm almost like a little disappointed they just go back to stroke play for the finale.
Yeah.
Why not just keep a good thing rolling? But yeah, I guess it's kind of to see who the complete team is, which I don't know. 4 aces could be in trouble.
Well, I'm with you. It's a little bit of I think match play, and listen, like you can't hide when all 4 scores count in stroke play, but you really can't hide in match play, right? And we saw that at the President's Cup with somebody like a Corey Connors, who is a good player, but he just didn't have it, and he couldn't. There's nowhere to hide, and I think that's compelling. I think that's really interesting. So I'm with Patrick. I wish they would. I think the match play stuff is super interesting, and I wish they would keep it and maybe even lean into it for the championship.
I mean, only 1 day worth of we saw the internationals beat the Americans both Saturday and Sunday. I don't know if they won Sunday, but they won the weekend. But you know what I mean? Like you could get some pretty significant upsets playing 3 matches on 1 day in this format, couldn't you? You could get some pretty big upsets.
Yeah, with 1 singles alternate shot is kind of wild. Yeah, that could go any which way. And you could kind of hide, I guess, your worst player. You could just sacrifice a singles match and be like, all right, these 3 can go to work.
But then you have to win the other 2.
Yeah. But there is a way to hide someone. If you're like, we got Taylor Gooch, Patrick Reed, and Dustin Johnson. I think we'll be okay if we put Pat Perez into singles.
We're going to be
or
Patrick is going to be
singles.
You're going to be the main guy in the Pat Perez defamation case coming up soon.
It's coming out of a place of love, us Patrick's got to live together or, stick together, right? Reed, Perez, McDonald, it's a 3-headed monster.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on this team format before we talk TV deals and defamation?
What a world. No, I think it's good. Good on them for being creative. I hope the tour, I think it's easy to kind of hold your nose up in the air and sneer at other stuff like this. And there's a lot that I disagree with about LIV, but I hope the tour sees that that this is an interesting format and maybe goes to it in some other instances other than just President's Cup and the Dell Match Play.
Okay, we will chat where you may be able to watch LIV Golf on television and also a lot about Patrick Reed. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. LIV Golf nearing a TV deal with Fox Sports, and maybe more specifically, it seems like it's going to be Fox Sports 1. This is after weeks of talking with every single network that would listen to them. Greg Norman said he was fielding, quote, intense interest from media companies. And he said that they had 4 different networks with live conversations where offers were being put on the table. It seems as if they are going to partner here with Fox Sports. But Patrick, the big thing is that this is essentially an ad buy. LIV will pay to be broadcast on television as opposed to the opposite, where a network would pay to be able to broadcast the sport. And they'll also be on the hook for production costs and selling their own ads, which is fairly rare.
And there's obviously a stench around LIV. Who is going to want to advertise on that broadcast of theirs? Just
probably PXG. They advertise everywhere else.
And they do have some. I mean, they got P. Reed, Huddy. They got a few guys there. So yeah, that will be a loud broadcast, I guess. But I don't know. It's extremely difficult. Yeah,
broadcast a bit louder.
There's a lot of cohesion there. But I saw something. Did poker start out the same way, where they had to pay? I have no idea what the landscape of poker is. But
yeah, I mean, originally they bought time on, I don't know, ESPN or whoever else would allow them to, and then I don't know if they were on the hook for selling ads or production or anything like that. That's fairly uncommon, but yeah, they bought time. And Kyle, this is obviously much different from saying, hey, we're engaging in a bidding war for people to show us, but I mean, I assume there are a lot of net positives of being able to be found on network television outside of just YouTube.
Yeah, I think there's 3 different things going on here with this report. I think the first thing, I mean, listen, it's easy to kind of poo-poo on the fact that they had to buy, or they're having to buy TV time to put their product on the air. But I don't know, man. Like, they got their product on the air after like 4 months. Like, it's kind of, I don't know if it's impressive because you're essentially just throwing money around, but organizationally, I think it's meaningful. I think the thing that bothers me, and this is the second thing, is it's like, fine, buy your ad space, do your thing. Don't go around talking about how like everybody wants your product. Like, what is that doing? Like, that's just, it just adds to the ickiness of the whole thing. Like, it just feels like, listen, like if you're a startup and you want to say, hey, we're going to build this over several years, it's not going to be a finished product in year 1 or year 2. We're really working on that. But they come out of the gate thumping their chests like they're bigger and badder than the PGA Tour, and it just doesn't engender a lot of sympathy from anybody, us most of all. And so that bugs me. And then the third thing is this weird, and I don't know what to do with all this, but you've got this weird Trump, Jared Kushner, Greg Norman, MBS quadrilateral. And Kushner got $2 billion from the Public Investment Fund, which is also funding this golf league. And then he's calling around trying to get the LIV League on different state. I don't know if he was responsible, but he was certainly involved in sort of being the front man for this product. But he's also getting paid. and then his father-in-law is getting paid also to host the events at his courses. It's really strange. Like, all of it is very incestuous. And I think when people are like, "Oh, don't make this political," it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, that's all it is. Like, that's at the forefront of what it is. So I thought all of that was really kind of not surprising, but also kind of odd.
I think one of the big reasons that these conversations generally create a lot of enthusiasm in one direction or another is LIV Golf is political by design. That's a feature. It's not a bug, right? I mean, they're going to Trump courses. They both Greg Norman and Bryson DeChambeau have made appearances on Fox News, advocating for this league and for essentially the Saudis. And then, as we kind of read in this report, Patrick, Fox Sports did not really want to get involved with this. And it kind of took Jared Kushner making a phone call up the ladder at Fox Corporation to even hammer out this deal. And Kyle already outlined, the other strings that attach all of this to Donald Trump and everything. I mean, this is, to me, this is political by design, which might be a good plan for LIV Golf, because you're going to get some section of the American public that's a built-in fan of it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the perfect kind of encapsulation of it all was that Boston playoff when the guy got hit, flipped his hat around when he was talking on the broadcast. And
oh yeah,
that's kind of
so weird.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
he was a crisis actor.
one of the many weird parts of LIV thus far, but they're getting attention in kind of the most polarizing way this day and age. I mean, it's already a polarizing product, is to become even more political, right? It gets everyone talking about it. You get free space and, people's minds essentially. And so I don't want to say it's a smart decision, but if your goal is to get as many eyeballs on you and as many people talking about you, kind of is almost. And so it's just crazy how it has become essentially like one side of the aisle against the other when we're talking about, what support you have for which golf league. I never thought we would get here, but
my favorite part is the PGA Tour, known for its years of wokeness, is now the woke organization, right? Like that to me is the craziest part.
Okay, so I said this. I said it's insane. I said this in our this group chat that I'm in with some guy. Shane Bacon's in there, which I know we're going to talk about him in a minute. But
yeah,
I said the OWGR should become people should start calling it the official woke golf rankings. And somebody in that chat was like, "Hey, don't give that to the LIV bots for free." So I'm not gonna put that out there, but if people start calling it that, you know where it originated.
That's pretty good. Okay, so we've got TV deal coming with Fox Sports. Let's pivot to the Patrick Reed saga. So if you remember, there was a lawsuit against Brandel Chambly and the Golf Channel that was filed in a Texas
for how much money, Rick?
Right, $750 million, which Kyle, that what is the Golf Channel? And I mean, $750 million, like anything over 10 million is a lot of money or whatever. This is such an outrageous sum. It's almost hard to take the entire thing seriously just looking at the figure.
I think that's encapsulates it really well, and it's even more difficult to take it seriously if you read through the original. I haven't seen the new sort of filing, but the original filing was just preposterous. I mean, the misspellings and the puncture. I mean, it looked like an act of insanity, and I think the $750 million is a representation of that. So it's just. What are we? Why are we doing this? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? I don't. It just feels like a huge waste of time. But I don't really understand. Like, is Patrick Reed taking it seriously? Does he really think he's going to get some sort of Like why would you even enter into that? You know, that's the part that I don't understand. Just play your golf, win another Masters, go win a US, whatever. You've had a good career, a really successful career, and then all of a sudden it's just this sideshow thing that I guess is part of his whole aura. I don't know. The whole thing is very, very strange.
Sorry, Patrick. I thought you were going to jump in there.
No, it kind of reminds me of like last summer where like Bryson and the media were kind of at odds during, like, he wouldn't talk during the FedEx Cup playoffs at all.
Kind of.
And it's like, I was at Cave's first event I ever covered. Shout out. It was an experience, but it's like talking to his manager and kind of seeing them interacting where they're buddies. It's like there needs to be an adult in this room, and there isn't. And, you know, I don't want Justine coming at me or Patrick. You know, I have a great relationship with them. But there needs to be an adult in the room in the Reed household, and there just isn't. And it makes no sense, like you said, Kyle. It's just completely baseless. And it's like, what is the end goal? Because $750 million, like, come on, man. Like, you know, ESPN Monday Night Throwback. Come on, man. Like, seriously, this is what we're doing right now.
There was a weird, like, 15-minute period, Kyle, last night. Where the news broke that this defamation suit was withdrawn from Texas federal court. And everyone was like, oh, okay. Finally, some semblance of sense in all of this. Okay, here are a couple of memes. Here are a couple of jokes. Yada, yada, yada. 15 minutes later, the news breaks that no, this suit has just been refiled in district court in Florida, and more have been added to the claim. Eamon Lynch, Shane Bacon, Damon Hack. So this is, I guess, not winding down. It's speeding up. I don't know.
Well, so a couple things. Did you see I think Garrett Morrison tweeted it out, but the call the ambulance, but not for me meme?
Yeah,
that was an all-timer.
That's good.
That was unbelievable. The thing, like, okay, I understand Reed. Well, I don't understand Reed suing anybody, but I do understand Reed popping back at Brandel or Eamon. You know, they've been pretty. They've ridden pretty hard against him at times, which a lot of us have. The Shane Bacon and Damon Hack thing is like, what did they do? Like, they were just on the air. They were just on the TV screen when this was happening, or what?
Association. It's by association.
Well, and it's sort of like, well, why not just why not just name every golf media member? Because I have probably been more critical of Patrick Reed than Shane Bacon has. You know, it was just, I don't know, man. Like, it's so weird. And we were joking about how this group chat that we've had going for like 8 years now, like, buddy, if this gets deposed, we're all screwed. Like, I don't know how this is gonna go. It's, the whole thing is odd.
Kyle, you sound almost upset that you're not on it.
No, I don't want to be on
yeah,
it.
you've been left out.
I don't want to be anywhere near it. I just, the Bacon and Damon Hack thing just fell out of nowhere. I don't, the original one made more sense when it was just him and Brandel. You're like, okay, this is stupid, but at least it sort of makes sense based on what has, like, reality. You know, what is that, like, what has been said? This just is, like, not even based in reality. It's fantasy land.
Yeah, it's like you turned on Golf Channel one day, saw them host Golf Today, and we're like, let's add them. What the hell? Let's do it.
Yeah. Like, you started naming random people at Golf Channel.
Worth noting, Reed's attorney, Larry Klayman, has a winless record in basically anything he's ever done, and had his law license suspended 2 weeks ago for 18 months. for a case that he mishandled. So I'm, only being represented by the best here. But Klayman would go on to say, quote, neither Chambly, Hack, Bacon, Lynch, and NBC's Golf Channel itself, nor any of their alleged co-conspirators, that's probably you, Kyle, such as the PGA and DP World Tour, are above the law, and they will finally have their day of legal reckoning before Lady Justice, end quote.
I got that. So I got a press release essentially from the law office of Larry Klayman, which I don't know how I got on there. I don't want to be on there. Take me off if you're listening to this, Larry. And that was the last paragraph, and I was just howling. I mean, they will get their day. What did it say? Their day of legal reckoning before Lady Justice.
Yes.
And he put Lady Justice in quotes.
Right.
It's just incredible stuff. Like, if you would have pitched this to any of us on like the beginning of January, hey, this is going to happen. It's going to be like the 28th weirdest thing that happens this year. I mean, we would have been flabbergasted. And yet here we are, beginning of October, and it's not even in the top 20, I don't think, of weird things that have happened.
This has such like Saul Goodman vibes, but Saul was actually like good at his job. Like that's kind of the difference here. But it feels just like that. Like this grand scene that he's made. I don't even, what happens next? Do we have any idea? I'm looking for like what the timeline of this is. I don't even know how something like this works moving forward.
All I know is it needs to be on Zoom, like the TRO one, because that one, and they need to open the chat. Like that needs to be a thing.
Yeah, that'll happen.
The TRO one was way more compelling than I thought it would be. It was entertaining. Can we just get Beth Freeman on retainer and just have her run all these?
Oh, she's the best.
No.
She's the best.
She was awesome.
Okay.
I got a message about her. Somebody had played golf with her at Torrey. Yeah.
Any good?
She plays golf?
Any good?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but this person had played golf with her at Torrey and said she's awesome. She's good at golf, and she understands like the professional landscape really well.
Wow. Played golf with her recently?
Yeah, I think last couple of years, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a tough scene for the LIV lawyer who said the API was in like Ohio. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And Freeman's like, actually,
Yeah.
you got your PGA Tour legends mixed up there.
Okay, gentlemen. Well, that's 4 big bullet points coming out of LIV Golf World. Is there anything I missed or anything we must discuss before we get out of here?
Must discuss. The whole OWGR letter was just another spindle to this all, but
I hate to say it.
Okay. Can I do my OWGR thing real quick? Go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to say, I hate to say it. Greg Norman does not have he's like 0 for 3 here on, can the tour suspend you? Absolutely not. He was wrong about that. About how the TRO would hold up, he was wrong about that. About how the OWGR, he was been wrong about that. And about all the suitors he was going to have with the broadcast, kind of wrong about all that. I'm not sure he's got a great handle on everything that's going on right now.
No, you're right. The OWGR thing, it's if you stop and think about it for like 10 seconds, and I said this last 2 weeks ago, I think, but if you start giving out OWGR points based on who's in a field, then you're going to have to give OWGR. Somebody said the JP McManus Pro-Am should get OWGR points. And that's the logic that's being used here. You can't do that. You cannot do it. It doesn't make any sense because you're not setting any parameters for what the OWGR, like there has to be an objective parameter for what the OWGR is. It can't just be based on, well, Dustin Johnson's playing 36 holes with Wayne Gretzky on Friday. Like they should get an OWGR point. Like that is illogical. And I get people's frustration with Cam Smith and DJ losing in the OWGR thing, but Rory said this, like, make your tournaments. There are parameters set for a reason so that you compare You can compare apples to apples across the globe. That's why the OWGR exists. And if you don't like people talk about the OWGR, I have talked about the OWGR like it's the end all be all. It doesn't. The OWGR was invented like 30 years ago. It doesn't even matter. The only thing that matters here is major championship status. And major championships can just say they can make their parameters whatever they want. It doesn't have to be OWGR points. So I don't know. That whole argument is just so illogical to me and frustrating.
Yeah, the idea that just because a great golfer is playing somewhere, that opens you up to a lot of problems too, right? I mean, the TaylorMade could put on a series of 8 events with just the 12 TaylorMade guys and get OWGR points and guarantee like that. It doesn't make any sense. There has to be something within the system.
Well, and the rebuttal to that, Rick, is the Hero World Challenge should not get OWGR points.
For sure.
And I agree. It shouldn't.
Sure.
I think it's not a great look that it does.
I agree.
So, Kyle, I bounced this idea off you a couple months ago. OWGR was kind of like their biggest hurdle, LIV, right, to kind of being a legitimate golf organization. And they have ties with the Asian Tour already. I want to know, like, could they have just bought the Asian Tour from the start and kind of changed, essentially made 12, I don't want to say like WGCs, but 12 events in that Asian Tour schedule and made it LIV almost?
Before you reply, Kyle, that was, I'm pretty sure we thought that's what they were going to do. When we remember how this has evolved and when they did that, like, hey, big investment or right before, I think that's what we thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of problems to that, namely that you have to get players to play in the regular events so that they can qualify for your WGCs on the Asian Tour, and nobody wants to play more than whatever. There's a lot of logistical problems, but yeah, like if that was the scenario, depending on what the specifics were, I could be talked into them getting OWGR points there. Like I don't think that's an irrational route to take to get. And I don't think the WGCs, like, I think they should get OWGR points. Like there was a way to qualify in there and not just, handpick 48 guys and then just throw OWGR points at them. That's you can do. That's totally fine. It can't exist inside the system that the OWGR has set up.
Yeah. And then second thing, do you think we ever get to a point where the major championships are like top 5 from LIV gets an exemption this year?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it'll be in the next 3 years.
Okay. Rick?
But if LIV
no. The majors are incentivized greatly to do nothing. And I do not see any reason why they would come and I don't think there's any incentive to do it.
I think I agree with Kyle just because they're now the only 4 weeks where you have the potential to get every best player.
Well, the reason, Rick, that I think this is because I think I've been pretty consistent on this. I think the real lawsuit is LIV against the OWGR, right? And I think they have a legitimate argument that if OWGR, well, they have a legitimate argument if they change their format. But if they change their format and then OWGR is still boxing them out, which maybe they wouldn't, but I think they have a legitimate like collusion type argument to where the majors would sort of be forced to say, fine, we'll like let your top 3 guys in. So that means we're not colluding anymore and we can just move on. Right. And maybe that's not how it plays out, but I think there's a world in which that path could be taken.
There is, certainly there is a world where that exists, and it might be more likely than not. But there is also a world which I don't think is being discussed enough that top level players don't stay top level players for a long time. And Rory McIlroy being in the top 15 of the world rankings for a decade is that's an anomaly, right? And there is a scenario in which all of this takes so long to play out that, like, okay, we kind of forget and move on from Cam Smith and Dustin Johnson, and they're going to be so far down the, like, I just think that without a constant influx of contextual winners or highly ranked players in the world going to LIV, they're going to have a problems continuing to say we have the best players in the world.
Yeah, but do you not think that constant influx will still exist? Like, I think there's a world in which, let's take a mid-30s player like who's a top 15 guy like Tony Finau, and say 6 years from now, Finau's he's just like a tier worse than he used to be. He's not really competitive at majors. He gets an offer from LIV and goes over there. Well, he's still ranked 21 in the world or whatever. And then you sort of start the cycle. I'm not saying Tony Finau's going to LIV. And in fact, I don't think he would do that in that scenario. But he's just an example of like the type of player that they would be getting at that age. So you almost have to if you're LIV, you have to restart the cycle at some point to get it, because if it's shut off, if it's closed, then yeah, you're not gonna have anybody in the top 100 in the world. Even if you get OWGR points, it's gonna be horrible. Like, it's not gonna be good. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hamster wheel of signing relevant players, and with that, I mean, it's just constant cash outflow.
And relevant is really only being created in two spots: the PGA Tour and major championships.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other problem they have when it comes to OWGR is the limited nature of their fields. With the way the OWGR changed the way they distribute points, you get more points for a bigger, deeper field. This is why the Fortnite got whatever it's called, got more points than the BMW PGA Championship, because they didn't have more top 20 guys, but they had more top 250 guys, right? And the LIV is going to have a problem. Like, let's say they expand their fields to be 75 or 80. Well, you have a numbers problem based on the OWGR's new formula. And I think that's going to, they've got a lot of issues that they got to work through. And this sort of tour that they've purported to be the fun and, like modern way to do things might be actually what limits them from succeeding in the future.
So that is a pretty good segue into kind of the final thought here. There's a comment, Jacob, from Tokyo Swan at 12:49. Or sorry, no, you have the right one. No, the one before that. Yeah. It says, I'm looking forward to all the LIV guys turning around and suing Greg Norman and LIV for lying about being able to stay on tour and play in major championships. I think, and Taylor Gooch, and like we've heard it, like, I'm not sure a lot of these guys were 100% sure of what they got into. And based on the communication that we've seen given to them, it is not really aligning with what reality is for at least the first handful of months of this thing's existence. I do wonder if this never gets resolved, what direction these lawsuits end up going in.
I mean, what's the big agency? Is it ESG?
GSE, I think.
GSE? Yeah, that one. I mean, that could go under their golf practice if this pans out. But yeah, I don't see them suing LIV unless you want to.
Yeah, that's probably an arms race to cash that you probably don't win. But it is interesting, right? I mean, I think if you gave some of these guys, Kyle, if you gave them truth serum and you said, hey, Taylor Gooch, like, where did you think you'd be in basically October 1st in all of this? And I'm not sure he's in the same spot he thought he'd be in.
I mean, he thought, well, first of all,
yeah.
He thought he was only playing one event, right?
Right.
But him and I think it was Matt Jones were in Memphis. They were like on the, I don't know if they're on the putting green, but they were in the area, right? And so, yeah, I think sometimes I want to say this kindly, but I think sometimes we think that professional athletes, or like when professional athletes are really good at something, we also think that means they're really smart and really funny, and like we sort of transfer their goodness in a sport to all the other areas of life. And I just don't know that that's true, especially with some of these guys. There are some guys in golf that are super smart, way more intelligent than I am. I saw Sahith Theegala is trying to get to like level 2000 on his like chess master thing. Mm-hmm. He would beat me in like 45 seconds probably. My 8-year-old son almost beats me. But a lot of these guys, they just saw a bunch of money and they were like, oh, well, they'll like, there's some arrogance involved of like, oh, they're not going to keep me out of the majors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it kind of permeates that sort of sphere of people. And then you end up where you're at right now, where it has become a big problem. And I could see them suing. Yeah, like, I mean, the LIV thing is like, what are you going to do? Sue like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Like, good luck with where's that going to go? But there could be like a Norman or an agency, or maybe you're even your own agent personally, that you sue and say, hey, this is not what we like. It was kind of purported to be.
Yeah. Also, like, what a character arc for Taylor Gooch. You know, the guy who thought, oh, it's just one event in London and then I'll be back on the PGA Tour. And now he's like chirping Billy Horschel on Twitter and everything.
It's
he might not be the yeah.
Come on, KB, let it out.
No. I can't do an Oklahoma State guy like that.
He told us he wasn't that bright himself. He said that.
Yeah, he did. He did say that for sure.
All right, gents, always a pleasure. Appreciate you both checking in from remote locations and getting this one done. Producer Jacob does all the hard work behind the scenes. Patrick McDonald available on Twitter at Amateur Status. Kyle Porter, of course, can be found at Kyle Porter CBS. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.